Is this that JPP podcast?
Uncle Tony's back to talk about blockbuster trades of the NFL. The Browns taking it to overtime again, and their buys, who they thought they were, and who's not making the playoffs. All that and more this week on Just Press Play.
The red wasp is excavated. Pregnant ladies and little kids better get the hell out of the way, because I am running. I'm like Forrest Gump, dude. I am running. So, the Titanic was the biggest ship on the ocean, but that didn't mean it was unsinkable. Okay. All right. I want you each to use ombudsman in a sentence next week.
I got one for you. My name is Kevin, the official ombudsman of the Just Press Play podcast. You like apples?
All right, welcome back into another edition of the JPP Pod. We're down one. We're missing Pops, but we got L and Uncle Tone joining. What's up, guys?
Hello. I'll keep doing my British voice as long as we keep having London games. So
I'm telling you, speaking of, so those London games, I know no one cares about my fantasy team or really anyone's fantasy team that's not their own. But I bet I'm not the only person that Melvin Gordon cost me a damn loss in fantasy, because I knew to monitor it, but I just knew myself, and I'm not waking up at 8 a.m. on
So here's my first rant of the evening. I know you guys realize it won't be my last, but
ding, number one.
Yeah.
All right, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Melvin Gordon.
Is this the first F-bomb or the last F-bomb? We'll see.
This is probably going to be the first F-bomb. I've got Melvin Gordon, and I've got him on a couple of teams, and on both of those teams, I am either leading the league or right behind it. So you're
probably doing pretty well.
It's Sunday morning. I know to get up, and all of a sudden, Melvin Gordon's inactive. You want to know why Melvin Gordon's inactive? Because the fucking grass in Wembley Stadium is 2.5 inches long or something, and it's slick. So if Melvin Gordon is playing anywhere in the United States, anywhere, he's playing on Sunday.
Oh, good Lord.
But since he's in London, where they grow grass to play some stupid ass club sport, he can't play. And that costs me two victories. Which is serious money, man. Anyway, so I don't know why. It's just, man. Anyway, there it is. So, yeah, it's tough to wake up after party animals that we are. It's tough to wake up at 8:30 in the morning, but conditions really make it worse.
So normally I don't like bringing up, especially like my fantasy team and my complaints, but I thought that one was worth bringing up because I bet there's like we mentioned, I bet most Melvin Gordon owners out there, unless they screwed up the rest of their draft, they're probably doing pretty well. And that probably really pissed him off to wake up and see
nobody cares, because I had 33 points from my defense and still lost my game. So go ahead and just go to hell. I don't care.
Well, that gets me perfectly to our presenting sponsor of the JPP Pod. And if your fantasy team is like LJ's and you just aren't very good, then you can still get in and win some money by heading over to MyBookie and putting the money down. Yep. And we got Uncle Tony back. I'm sure he's going to give you a few locks this week. I don't know what they'll be.
But did me right. Skins Pick'em was all right.
But I want to get to our first topic, and it sounded like deja vu to me, but the Cowboys have now traded a first-round pick for a wide receiver. The Cowboys trade their first in 2019 for Amari Cooper of the Raiders, and John Gruden just keeps tearing that sucker down. I don't know if anybody else is going to make it to Vegas with him, but he'll get there. I mean, I just want to toss it straight to you, Tony. What you think of the trade? What do you think of the Cowboys?
Place my words because I don't want to throw F-bombs every time I speak tonight, but it was widely known that around the league that they were looking for a first round pick. The Raiders were, and everybody was offering them a second until the Cowboys, just said, "Oh well, gosh, yeah, let's give you a first round pick." So here's the thing: if that was Amari Cooper from 2015, in 2016, it's definitely worth it. So his first 2 years in the league, yeah, he tore it up and did well. But what's happened is Amari Cooper has turned out to be our generation's Jimmy Smith, where, it's great that he can get out there and he looks like he should play the part, but he doesn't. And for you to give up a first round pick for a guy that you're going to have in half of 18, who is concussed, by the way, half of 18 and then all of 19, for a guy that you could have probably paid, you could pay Des Bryant a little bit less than probably what you're paying Cooper, and pretty much got the same receiver. Just not a good trade. And it's bad when Troy Aikman comes out and says, I think the Cowboys fucked up. And that's when it's a bad trade, when Troy Aikman's talking bad about the Cowboys, and that's what it is. So I am not in favor
I will
of the
say
trade.
I don't think Troy Aikman is a very bright human being when he doesn't have a football in his hand, because he was just recently saying how like podcasts are something that nobody listens to. And if he's right, then we're wasting our time here. So, sure, we can go to hell. But I'll also say that I totally agree with what you're saying. It feels like when I heard that this trade was happening, I remember very vividly how the Cowboys were talking about how they haven't had a number one receiver in like 6 years or something like that. And Amari Cooper sounds exactly like Des Bryant to me, where he had like 2 or 3 amazing years and then kind of that downward slope. And now his team's trying to get rid of him. I mean, like, why not pick up Des again? Like, I don't understand why they wanted Amari for a first round pick. I just don't see what the value was for them.
I'm hoping Kev's going to drop some just nasty stats on us about Amari Cooper here the last 4 years, because I didn't get a chance to research it.
Well, there's quite a bit to unpack here from y'all's responses. But one, I did want to say something about the remark that Jerry Jones said that we haven't had a number one receiver in whatever he said, 7-10 years, whatever he said. That's really a dumb thing to say when you are the guy that drafts and picks receiver. I don't know if he realizes this, but it's like, basically he's like, really, I've sucked for the past 8 years at evaluating receivers. So that one was dumb. But just on Amari Cooper, and I will say this, I get what you're saying on the fact that they could have had Des Bryant for probably cheaper and all this and not giving up a first round pick. But Amari Cooper, for as bad as he's been the past year, and besides last year, I think he had like that 200-yard game on Thursday Night Football. Other than that, he's been pretty abysmal. I think he leads the NFL in drops over the course of the past year and a half. But what he does that's different than Des Bryant is he does actually create separation. The Cowboys receivers, there's like these next gen stats. I was looking up some stuff, and Bill Barnwell really always tweets them out. And the Cowboys receivers are 32nd right now in creating separation. And basically it was showing that Dak Prescott never throws to open receivers, or at least it's like at 20, I think it was like 27% of his receivers are open, which means like 3 yards of separation. And the NFL average is like 45%.
Well, he is Jay Cutler.
So it was like, maybe Dak Prescott isn't good.
What is the purpose of a quarterback?
Well,
to throw to open receivers.
Well, and to wear a boot when you need them to. So.
Wear a boot.
Well, so here's the thing is and here's the reason I'll kind of defend the trade. I agree that basically the NFL made fun of the Raiders 2 weeks ago when they were like, we're shop. They might be shopping Amari Cooper, but they're asking for a first. And basically the NFL in total and all analysts were like, LOL, a first for Amari Cooper. No one's going to do that.
We'll see.
And Jason Garrett and Jerry Jones are like, hold on, wait a minute.
Let me get some cush up.
So I do think they overpaid. They did overpay for Amari Cooper, but here's the thing. Here's why I think it was actually probably worth doing, is just because they got to figure out, not this offseason, typically what they would do with Dak Prescott and a quarterback on his rookie deal, they would decide this offseason whether they would go ahead and pay him the extension or not. And that extension, as we all know, for quarterbacks is really high. So they got to make their decision soon on whether they would pay him. And I don't think they can rightfully evaluate, because he did have that great rookie year and then he didn't play as good last year. And this year it seems like it's still up for debate. If he doesn't have talent to throw it to, whether that's the Cowboys' fault or not, which, I do think so.
It's hard to judge him. Yeah.
They do need to decide whether they need to decide whether he can be the guy. And so you go get him Amari Cooper. If he can't make Amari Cooper better, then you can at least rightfully think to yourself, well, we tried to give him an option and he's just not the guy. So I get their debate there. And Amari Cooper did, before they made the trade, they did talk with Amari Cooper, and he said he would be willing to put off negotiations for a big contract until after this year and a half. So he's wanting to prove it. So I get it. And Jason Garrett's thing, though, the one thing that Jason Garrett came out and tried to defend his deal was like, he's only 24. He's not much older than a receiver we would have gotten the first round this year, which Calvin Ridley, I think, is 23. So you're right. But Calvin Ridley's also got 3 more years on a rookie deal where, like Tony said, if Amari Cooper has a great 8 games to end this season, he's going to be asking for, Sammy Watkins just got paid $16 million a year, and he's not even a number 2, maybe 3 receiver. Cooper's going to ask for $20 million a year if he's productive.
You're absolutely
so then
right.
you're on the hook
he's
for
willing
Cooper
to sit and not talk for a year and a half, as long as he doesn't blow up, and then he's going to want to talk about his contract. It's easy to say I don't want to talk about it when everybody's trying to shop you out.
Yeah, let him have a big half of this year. Yeah, let him have a big 8 games to end this year, and the Cowboys somehow miraculously win the NFC East, and Jason Garrett gets a 10-year extension, and then Cooper's going to be asking for his 16 to 20 million a year real quick. It's just part of the game. But I did look up, and Tony, you'll remember some of this. The last time, because I just thought this is deja vu, the Cowboys trading first for a receiver. And I looked up how it went the last 2 times the Cowboys did this. In 2000, they traded 2 first-rounders for the Seahawks, Speedy Joey Galloway, who you can kind of tell how his career as a Cowboy would go in the very first game. And I hate to see an injury, but his first game as a Cowboy, he tore his ACL and missed that whole season. And then he ended up never having, in the 4 seasons he was there, he never had over 61 catches or 6 touchdowns in a season.
Wow.
And that was for 2 first-rounders. By the way, the Seahawks used one of those first-round picks from the Cowboys on Sean Alexander, who ended up being the 2005 MVP, who was also a guy they could have probably used him in 2001 when they were trying to figure out what to do with an aging Emmitt Smith.
Kev.
That's neither here nor there.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Then they traded for, I believe it was 2011 or so. They traded for Roy Williams from the Lions, and in that trade, they gave up a first, a third, and a 6th round pick for Roy Williams, who then immediately, as the date of the trade, agreed to a 5-year extension worth $45 million guaranteed. And for all that, Williams gave the Cowboys 40 games in which he had 94 catches and 13 touchdowns. That would average out to about 2 catches a game and less than a half a touchdown a game. So that really worked out well for him.
Also did have a monopoly on everybody named Roy Williams that year. So that was pretty cool.
That's true. They were trying to fool everybody. Everyone's tapes room, they were going, is that Roy Williams? Yeah. No, which Roy Williams is it?
Here's where Kevin, I'm telling you guys.
Here's the thing, and
is it horse collar or cash? I don't know.
Yeah. Kevin, you made a great point about Dak Prescott and his rookie contract. We won't delve in too much, but here's the thing. If that was what you were doing to see if Dak could really produce with a wide receiver, then Amari Cooper was not your target. And LJ might hate to hear this. Demaryius Thomas is probably going to end up somewhere by the 30th.
Right,
and especially if the Broncos can't produce a win this weekend. And that's the guy they should have went and gotten. And they could have gotten that for second, third. And it's a 1-year deal. You bring him in, you see what you can do. If it happens, you get chemistry, then deal with Demaryius Thomas. He's a much better character than Dez, or I think Amari Cooper would be. That would have been a great play right there. And you didn't see that happen. And so we'll see. I hope that Amari Cooper does what he's supposed to do, but we are still getting karma. The Cowboys are still getting karma for Herschel Walker. That is just still coming back. They're saying, screw you, buddies.
Throwback.
You're still on the plus side on that one. So,
well, I was just going to say, by laying out the last few times the Cowboys have done this first for a receiver, it can't get much worse. The bar is set really low for what we expect out of our first round pick for a receiver. So we'll see.
Then that's when all of a sudden now Dallas Cowboy fans are just like the Cub fans, isn't it? And can it get much worse?
Shut up.
Can it get much worse? Man.
I don't even want to watch the World Series right now because it's the Dodgers and the Red Sox killing them, but they're also like the second worst villains. Yeah. But I was going to say that the Raiders, can we start an embargo where nobody trades with the Raiders? Because as stupid as Gruden is, he's doing the right thing. I mean, they're not okay. The I don't care about Oakland Raiders are ready for Vegas, and they're gonna lock up the AFC West for like 5 years if people let them keep this up.
Well, so that's interesting. That's right where I wanted to go. If John Gruden didn't have a funny looking haircut, a memeable face,
he fits
overpaid
right into
by about
the Davis
overpaid by about $90 million and a walking soundbite. And instead, he was like some analytical guy from baseball or from like young hotshot. We'd probably be coming him a genius because all of a sudden the Raiders have now turned a team where it was looking like they were a bunch of guys who didn't know if they really liked each other and guys who were going to want big contracts. And they've flipped that to 5 first-round picks in the next 2 drafts. Now, what Gruden does with those first-round picks, we shall see. Yeah. But it is Dad was on the money about 4 weeks ago when he said that the Raiders just told John Gruden, blow it up. We trust you to take us to Vegas with the right guys. Yeah. And he's doing it.
Well, that's why they gave him the 10-year. That's what I like. I look at the Broncos and people are calling for Vance Joseph's head, which may or may not be a reasonable thing to call for. But the fact that he's a second-year head coach, you got to let your coaches like develop the team that they want to develop. And the Raiders are letting Gruden do that. And I mean, whether Gruden's smart or not, that's an advantage he has over almost every coach in the NFL besides maybe Belichick and, for some reason, Marvin Lewis and, a handful of other coaches. But, the 10-year contract is a huge deal that's actually going to do the Raiders a lot more good than bad.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing with Bill Belichick's long success was he finally got an owner that Robert Kraft lets Belichick. If he thinks Richard Seymour's washed up, cut him. If he thinks Chandler Jones isn't worth the contract, cut him. And or trade Jamie Collins for a first round pick and things like that. And other teams don't trust their coach to make those decisions. Now, like you said, Gruden may take this straight into the ground and screw these first round picks up, but if you're gonna bring a new coach in, you got to let him do it and give him the ability to do his system. And so at least they're trying.
And also the chances that you screw up 5 first round picks in 2 years is relatively low. I mean, like you still got a pretty good chance of getting at least a superstar out of that. Like
I don't know. You can ask Jason Garrett that, but Now Kevin,
he's never had 5 in 2 years though. You can just throw a dart at a wall with that. I feel like, but
Kevin just dropped us that knowledge on wide. As long as they don't pick wide receivers, they're fine. So Kevin, you made a good point. And so here's the thing. You had asked earlier, what is Gruden, an idiot or a genius? And I think he may be an evil genius. Although if we have time, I'd love to come back to LJ's comment about how the front office of the Oakland Raiders look. That's just awesome. If you've ever seen Mike Davis sitting up in the stands, you'd think you hear a banjo playing in the background or something. But anyway,
every time I've thought I could cut my own hair, then I Google a picture of Mark Davis and change my mind. So.
I keep wondering, he sure got a purty mouth. But anyway, But anyway, so if Gruden is smart, and here's what I think will happen. Next year's draft class is not as heavy in athletes as it has been in the past. As a matter of fact, it's one if you follow Dynasty fantasy, next year's draft class is pretty thin. However, it's got a lot of offensive linemen, so it's not a real sexy draft. So if Gruden is smart, he goes out there and he can get him 2 or 3 offensive linemen and really build a big offensive line, or the offensive line that he's looking for. He doesn't have to answer anybody. He doesn't have to go get a Saquon Barkley. He doesn't have to go get a first-round quarterback. He can hang out, let it go. And then the next year when the big boys start to come, and you just saw the Oregon quarterback probably going to stay in for one more year.
Maybe.
So 2020 will really be the year for him to really push it forward then.
I do think it's interesting.
Well, and I mean, honestly, statistically, the smartest thing he could do is to trade those first round picks for like 3 third rounds each and just like end up with like some 20 picks in the draft.
Well,
like,
that's why
statistically the best thing he could possibly
That's the thing where Gruden's not a genius, because yes, he has got 5 first round picks, and I do think that's smart. And they're going to go into next year with $74 million in cap space. And that's if they don't cut Derek Carr, trade Derek Carr and get out of that contract. But he also traded
safe on Oakland.
He also traded a 3rd round pick for Martavis Bryant and then cut him 4 weeks later and then signed him back and traded like a 5th round pick for AJ McCarron. So he's not stockpiling picks, but I do. So before we get completely off of this whole Cowboys and Raiders trade, I want to let's not overlook what happened on Sunday, where the clapper Jason Garrett went into conservative mode again. And I wrote this down. The Cowboys had first down on the Washington 37 with 1 timeout and 52 seconds left. What they did from there was they pulled off a whole 2 plays, which was a 6-yard completion over the middle to Cole Beasley, where they then walked to the line real slow, wasted about 35 seconds, and then handed the ball to Ezekiel Elliott for 3 yards to the middle of the field.
Smart way to save time.
And then called a timeout to decide, instead of maybe taking a shot at the end zone, which would have won the game, instead of forcing overtime, they were like, we'll just settle for this 42-yard field goal. And then I will say, it is like the Cowboys to get screwed or to do something stupid and have a bad penalty that cost them the game. That actually was an abominable penalty. And I've seen highlights now over and over. The guy does the exact same thing every single snap, and then they call it right there with the last kick on the line to back him up for a snap infraction. That was a terrible call by the refs, but Jason Garrett deserved it because he didn't learn his lesson just 2 weeks ago when he played it conservative to go for the tie. If Hugh Jackson hasn't taught you that playing for overtime isn't smart, I don't know what will. Jason Garrett is the worst coach, I think, maybe in the NFL. And at least when it comes to game managing, he's just terrible. And he's just going to do what Jason. I don't want to get on a rant. We've done this 100 times. But
I just can't wait till he's the offensive coordinator of the Cardinals and I get to say the Cardinals got the clap. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Well, I'm staying calm here on the back porch.
It just drives me crazy.
The record for F-bombs.
Doug Peterson just showed the NFL last year that this whole new analytical thing about being aggressive and maybe go for it on 4th and 2 every now and then and go for a touchdown and set. Yeah. If you're playing for overtime, I mean, we're saying it's probably overtime is a 50-50 shot at winning if you get to overtime, and we're not going to take at least one shot at the end zone or something. Well, I just Kevin, don't get it. You're just it just doesn't make sense.
You started the podcast talking about Pat Shurmur of the 1-6, I think, New York Football Giants, and he's getting praise. Yeah, you really need to go for 2 in that case because you really want to go in overtime on the road. And here's Jason Garrett, a 6, 7, 8, 47-year coach, and he's going for the tie. And again, I said it last time we were on, and I'll say again, it's just character. It's just the way it is, and that's his character. He's not trying to win. He's trying not to lose, and you cannot play professional football like that. You can't play any professional. You can't play any sport like that.
I forget what was the
except soccer. You can play soccer that way.
God, I did not realize this was going to be the Bash Soccer podcast from Uncle Tony.
Man, Melvin Gordon, I would have won. Melvin Gordon would have been playing if they weren't playing on a damn soccer pitch.
So
I'm not gonna bomb you like Matthew Berry, but I'm telling you, anywhere else but Wembley Stadium, Melvin Gordon goes off for 125, 4 catches and 2 touchdowns, and I'm sitting on top of 2 leagues. Never mind. Let's go.
It's like you said about Jason Garrett, and playing to win the game. I think there was the prophetic words from Mr. Herm Edwards at one time when he was wearing a Jets sweatshirt where you play to win the game, and Jason Garrett's not. Speaking of guys who don't play to win the game, and we mentioned
Edwards quote. I can go to bed now. It's a Herm Edwards quote.
Awesome. We mentioned playing for ties and playing for overtimes. Does Hugh Jackson and the Browns, do they know they don't actually get paid overtime in overtime? Like, I swear, I don't think they realize this.
I've got a theory that Hugh Jackson thinks he gets paid hourly.
So he thinks if he can go, because I've never seen a team go to overtime as often as they do. And every week I'm like, could they get another tie?
He's evaluating players. He needs more time to evaluate players.
All right. Well, we've done enough bashing. I want to get to the part where we talk good about a team. So I'll start with you, Uncle
Broncos?
Tony. Who is this?
Yeah.
Boy, the Broncos going to win, and LJ's like, do we want to talk about the Broncos?
Oh, yeah. We do need to talk Broncos tonight at some point, and I know LJ knows what I want to talk about.
All right, Tony, well, the Broncos may be your choice, but who's this week for you on the... Are you buying the Broncos, Tony? Who do you got, Uncle?
Okay, so who I'm buying, because I was looking at the spreadsheet we had, and I thought a few weeks ago that I bought the Redskins. And I was looking at our spreadsheet, and it doesn't look like that I have.
Well, you all but did, because you made the bet on them, but I don't think you bought them in our segment.
So
our game.
I am buying the Redskins, and I'll give you a big quote this week, or a big deal this week. And if you're out there on MyBookie, I don't know the line yet between Washington and the Giants, but let me say this:
here's your lock. Listen up, boys.
if Washington goes into New York, they just let go of Eli Apple. Things are not good in the Meadowlands. I believe the Redskins go in there, win that game. They'll be 5-2. They'll have a 2-game lead on everybody else in that division. I think Washington is a bye and probably lock for the playoffs if they can win this weekend on the road against Washington.
Uncle Tony meant to say against the New York Giants.
They have a tremendously favorable schedule down the stretch. Get to play the Giants again.
Well, they get to play the NFC East.
Play NFC East. They get the Cowboys now. They get to play the NFC East. And by the time they play the Cowboys on Thanksgiving
Amari Cooper's going to be rolling. That offense
Stadium.
will be just rolling.
Yeah. Amari Cooper will have at least 10 drops by then. It'll be perfect. So I'm buying the Redskins because defensively they are manhandling people, and that's where you start to win in the going down the stretch.
Well, okay, that's interesting, and I've thought about the Redskins too, and I thought you had bought them too. I was looking back at the spreadsheet. I was like, I guess Tony never did actually buy them, but I agree. I think the Redskins may almost be a pick to make the playoffs just because someone's got to win the NFC East. Kind of like what LJ sent us last week in an email where he's like, can no team make it out of the East? They're just bad. The Eagles did. They were up 17-0 and ended up losing to the Panthers. I don't know. Good. That Super Bowl hangover is real, and maybe I was wrong trying to buy in on them.
Yeah.
No,
but I think that's another reason why the Cowboys probably are willing to give up that first for Cooper is because it really is. At this point, the East is up. Somehow the Cowboys have a legit shot at winning that, and they can't even win a game on the road.
It's a dice roll. Yeah.
So
the NFC East is a craps table. That's all it is.
I kind of like that buy. The only problem I would maybe have is they're still relying on he's an alien. I don't know how he's doing it, but Adrian Peterson, you're still relying on a running back who you would think's over the hill, and he just keeps running over people. And Alex Smith is still Alex Smith, and he does seem to falter late in the season.
Dude,
you think
Alex
Adrian
Smith,
Peterson might be on that CRISPR shit? He might be on because he got over that ACL pretty quick.
I think
a little too old to be playing some football.
I think Adrian Peterson got on the TB12 LeBron James thing where they don't get tested, but there's a little something in their water or something.
There's a little leeway.
Yeah, he hit up Alex Guerrero
just right.
Yeah, Peterson did come out and say he was playing with a dislocated shoulder this past weekend. So we'll see how he comes out of it next week.
Yeah, he's got like a sprained ankle, dislocated shoulder, and a sprained MCL, and he still goes for 28 carries, just running right into the middle of the Dallas defense, and it's impressive.
We can rebuild him. We have the technology. The bionic man.
All right, LJ, is this your time to go? Are you going to make a real buy, or is this you just want to praise the Broncos?
Oh, I'm not buying the Broncos.
Okay,
good. God, no. I love them. That game was the most fun I've had watching football in a long time. But
Mike McCoy, just the gift that keeps on giving.
Well, and he'll come up later. But Jacksonville, I think, is going to be my buy because I just don't think you get them cheaper than they are right now. Yep, I don't think you get them cheaper than they are right now. And a quiet Jalen Ramsey might be the thing that starts that defense playing some football. I don't know. I think that's a risky buy, but I'm taking it.
I did not think you could shock me with your buy this week, and boy, you have.
Y'all are awesome.
One, dude, have you not seen Blake Bortles play quarterback this year or any year for that matter?
I actually didn't watch football this week.
Hey, if you haven't seen him now, you may not get to see him again.
So that might actually be an improvement. I'm just saying.
That's right.
So I just want to bring up to you, El. I don't know if, and you of all people would get this, and I think this team looks exactly like where the Broncos were about week 5 last year, where that defense is amazing, but they're about ready to quit because their offense literally turns the ball over inside the 30 5 times a game, and I don't care how good you are at defense, if you give them a short field every time, you're going to give up 27 points. And
I don't know. I saw a Super Bowl won by the Broncos that exact way. So
yeah, I will. So here, I'll give you a little bit. I'll back LJ on it this way. They still got a quality defense. They're just not playing very well right now. They got a couple of guys out. So if they get them back, they could bring it back. But that is a cluster in the NFC South, I believe is what that is, and
AFC South.
AFC South, it's a cluster, and so
the Texans somehow win that.
Garbage, but
the Texans somehow lead that division with Bill O'Brien as their head coach.
3 weeks ago, I picked Houston out of the playoffs, and I'm still sticking with that. I don't know what's going on right now.
You're still right. You're definitely right. I think
so.
Go find a way to give it away.
Here's your little nugget let's see. We'll come back together again and see what happens next week. But I'm making a prediction right now that the starting quarterback after the bye for the Jacksonville Jaguars is Eli Manning.
So I don't think that's much better.
Tom Coughlin is the president.
Have you watched Eli Manning this year,
general
Tony?
manager of the Jaguars. Hey, watch and see. Hey, I'm just saying, see what happens. I would not surprise me because
You know what actually is a good fit is if the Steelers want to sign Le'Veon Bell. Ben Roethlisberger is basically Blake Bortles. They're both 240. They're both 6'5". They both can shake a tackle. They both can't throw. I mean, the defense doesn't have to, or the offense doesn't have to change a step.
So,
yeah, except Blake Bortles has never led the league in passing yards either. So,
well, Blake Bortles has never had Le'Veon Bell, has never had Antonio Brown. I mean, I'm just saying, we'll see.
Okay,
we'll see. I'd like to see that.
You're messing Kevin up, man. He's wanting to go to the next segment.
Well, I was
Kevin?
I was gonna mention with the Jaguars and Bortles because I thought they would come up somewhere in this game, but I did not think they would come up on the bye. This was the last place I thought they would come up.
Yeah.
They can't get them cheaper.
They have to do something with Blake Bortles. They have to do something with Blake Bortles because Bortles is
get him a Greyhound.
Well, you heard the media was going to get let into the locker room, and then they had to be kicked out of the locker room because Calais Campbell and other defensive players started almost into a fist fight and then they asked Jalen Ramsey afterward about what's going on, and he said, look, we all know what's going on. We can't say it because, you can't talk about it because they just paid the quarterback, but we all know what's going on. And Bortles is on he didn't mention the quarterback part. I put that one in there. But I agree with Tony. There is going to be a trade in the Jaguars' future, but I happen to think it's going to be them trading basically Bortles for Derek Carr because the Raiders have a ton of cap. They can bite the bullet on just like the Browns did on Osweiler, and they can get maybe a first or second for Derek Carr, Gruden's been throwing shots to Derek Carr the past 3 weeks. And I could see, and if you're the Raiders, obviously that team knows you're not going for a win anytime soon, so might as well bottom all the way out. And Derek Carr, where I don't know he's great, but if you throw him into the Jaguars locker room, all of a sudden they go, oh, well, this guy was good 2 years ago, and that defense is revitalized. I think it could work.
I don't know, Kevin, you said that. Now, real quick, I don't know if you saw this quote, but Derek Carr had to deny crying in the locker room.
He says,
let me say something.
LJ, he says there's a rift between him and the rest of the locker room because they think he cried after an apparent arm injury 2 weeks ago. And so he's having to say, I didn't shed one tear. He has a quote that says, I did not shed a tear.
When you have to go out into the national media and explain that you didn't cry, you fucking cried. You cried like a baby. And so, because everybody in that locker room is going, oh, man, come on, man. He cried. There's no way he's going to make it to another locker room like that.
Well, that's why. No, he goes to Jacksonville. He goes to Jacksonville with a clean slate, and he can be like, look, y'all don't know. The Raiders know who Derek Carr. He is who they thought he was, and he's a crybaby.
But Jacksonville's going to say, he's not Bortles.
Yeah.
Jalen Ramsey would have Derek Carr for lunch. It'd be like a scene from Orange is the New Black.
Can we watch that? Yeah, can we get a camera up in
Jacksonville
there?
edition. Man, he's like, come on back here to this room, man. Let me show you something.
All right, I'm sure the Jags may come up again, but I'll go on to move on from the buys. My buy this week, and I think Tony's going to like this one because he might have either he bought him last week or he just talked him up. But I'm actually going to buy the Detroit Lions. And the reason being, is because I think the NFC North is kind of up. There's a big cluster right now between the NFC North and who you like in that division. The Bears are, I think, one game out of first. They're in the fourth place, and they're only one game out of first right now. And I was going to buy the Packers. I really wanted to buy in on Aaron Rodgers and get healthy after bye week. But then I looked at their schedule, and they go at the Rams this week and then at New England next week. Now, if they win both those games, I'm buying them for maybe Super Bowl contender. But they could easily go 0-2 in those two and would not shock me.
Yeah.
And the Lions schedule coming up, they got the Seahawks, I think, this week. And then I just don't know for sure, but I like the Vikings, but I'm just not 100% sold. And I agree with what Tony said, where if you catch the Lions at home, they're a little bit scary. Yeah. Stafford can put up some points. Yeah. They got three good receivers. Yeah. And finally, I think they finally learned that running back they took in the first or second round, I forget where they got him, but he's actually pretty talented. And they might should hand him the ball, and he went for like 150 yards. He could easily break out the rest of this year.
Hey, yeah, you know what?
Do they play the Broncos?
Yeah. So Kerryon Johnson was the leading rusher in the SEC. The SEC basically is better than the AFC South. So, if you got the leading rusher from that, then you should run him. And so, Kevin, you're right. They cost me. The Lions actually cost me money because my exact quote from my bookie is, if there's any time that there's a plus in front of the Detroits, you take them. They were road favorites in Miami. Like, man, no way. And then there you go. That's football.
I don't understand. Coaches that's
not a bad buy.
They're so silly when it's just like what you see with Aaron Jones at the Packers. You have these running backs who, when they get the ball, they average like 5 yards a carry. But for whatever reason, these stubborn coaches go, oh, well, he's a rookie. And we did bring in the veteran LeGarrette Blount, so we need to make sure to give him 15 touches. Like, no, just because he's a rookie doesn't mean he's not your best running back. Just hand him the dang ball. Yeah. It blows my mind. Yeah, but maybe they learned their lesson. And I'm going to go with the Lions there for a bye. And moving on to the
now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass. But they are who we thought they were.
I will say, I'm going to stay in the NFC North, and who we thought they were, and maybe it's not who we thought he was, but it's who we need to start thinking of him. Adam Thielen might just be the best up there with the best receivers. I mean, we had the conversation a week or two ago about if Hopkins is the best receiver. Athletically, I don't know if there's things that those guys do where they jump up and catch balls where I go, man, no one else can do that. And maybe Thielen can't, but the dude he's now the first player in NFL history to have 7 straight 100-yard games to start a game in the Super Bowl era. The last guy to do that was for the Oilers in like 60. And it's just interesting. I know a lot of people know his story, but Thielen's story is just so fascinating to me that in 2009, he gets a $500 scholarship to go play at Minnesota State. And then he goes undrafted in 2013. Then the next 2 years, in 2014 to 16, the Vikings pay him a total of $1.5 million to play practice squad and some special teams. Then last year, he gets the $10 million guarantee after a great year. And now this year, he is, if not, I'm not going to say he's the best receiver, but he's now put himself squarely in the category with Antonio Browns and Hopkins and AJ Greens, because he does it every week. You know where they're throwing it, and he does it every single week.
I think you're overplaying a little bit, but I think you're also not terribly wrong. Like he is on fire.
I do think he does benefit from having Diggs on the other side. I think Diggs is a really good receiver. Yeah. And so you got to pick your poison.
I think Cousins is what, by the way, what the hell is up with all the Kirk Cousins hate in the world? Like, Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. Yeah.
I just think Kirk Cousins at some point is going to resurface as Kirk Cousins that we all know and love, and it's going to be in a big moment. But I do agree.
Who is the Kirk Cousins we all
know and love? Is a 26-5 guy. 26 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 3,500 yards. Well, who doesn't want that guy?
Get this Kirk Cousins is garbage baloney.
Well, no, I don't think he's garbage. I just don't think he's a stud. And I do think he has the best receivers he's ever had. And I did at the beginning of the year, I picked the Vikings to win the Super Bowl. So I was buying into some of the Kirk Cousins hype. Yeah. And I really admire Kirk Cousins for playing that franchise tag out perfectly and inking the Redskins for every guaranteed dollar they got, and then going and getting a fully guaranteed to the Vikings. Like, shout out to Kirk Cousins. Yeah. I mean, Le'Veon Bell his former Michigan State teammate probably hates it because you just can't do that as a running back because you take a different beating. They don't protect you like they do the quarterback. But shout out to Kirk for getting his money.
Well, yeah, Kevin, I'll give you props for that Adam Thielen call. That's a pretty good call. We are who we thought they were, because he has all of a sudden. You can't doubt that he's the number one wide receiver statistically in the NFL right now, and you could say more important to their team. He's just doing a great job for the Vikings, and out of nowhere, I don't know. I'd have to go back and look, but I can't think of anyone that was that low in the, he wasn't drafted, I don't believe.
I mean, it kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Miles Austin when he broke out with the Cowboys, just because he was from Monmouth and no one really knew him. But Thielen does this. It's not like a big game every couple of weeks. He does. It's a consistent 115 yards and usually a touchdown every single week.
Jerry Rice was from a small college, but he was drafted pretty high. And Jerry Rice, arguably the best wide receiver ever to play the game. But, Thielen, he's not the biggest guy. He's not the fastest guy. He's not the most athletic guy. He just goes and grabs those passes, and he's doing it at a phenomenal rate right now. So great call.
Yeah. Oh, and then I'll finish on this, and I'll let you go, El. But I think he kind of gets an unfair shake about he's not I think he is really athletic and he looks really fast at times. I think him being white makes us go, he's a deceptive. I swear.
Doesn't help.
What
are you saying? It doesn't help. Yeah.
If he if he were Stephon Diggs' skin tone, I think we would say he's a very athletic receiver and up there. And because he's white, he just looks slower to me, to you, to all of us. We just assume he's slower. I swear.
Yeah, you paint flames on the side of your car to make it go faster. So maybe it's something like he just needs flames on his socks.
So LJ, who's this week's who we thought they were for you?
Well, I will say there are some coaches that are good head coaches. There are some coaches that are bad head coaches but good coordinators, and then there's Mike McCoy's that shouldn't be hired by anybody ever in any league, and he proves it week in and week out. He's got the best receiving back in the NFL, and he runs it up the middle every play.
He may have the best back. I mean, David Johnson's one of the top 3 backs. I mean, I would say Gurley and them are better, but he's right there with the top backs in the NFL.
Yeah,
and he can't find a way.
They don't use him. Oh, Mike McCoy is exactly who I thought he was.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Mike McCoy is now your home lighting specialist at your nearest Home Depot. So you can go see him anytime you like.
He and Jason Garrett are going to find each other next year. I think. We'll see.
Yeah.
But
Jason Garrett will both be in plumbing. Excuse me. I need to find a washer dryer set for under $800. Mr. Garrett, can you help me with that?
I agree with you.
Well, you'll have to talk to McCoy because he's on electrical.
Yeah. Well, and Garrett's going to say, well, excuse me, you got to give me a minute. Let me think about it. I can't make a decision that quick.
You're so right.
But then McCoy's going to come up with a decision. Garrett's going to.
I will say that is the best light I've ever seen, McCoy. You are dead on.
Yeah, that's
You're
hilarious.
so right, though, LJ. You were spot on. I mean, just 2 years ago, before he got hurt last year, Bruce Arians showed that David Johnson should be thrown out in the slot. He should be moving him around. He was using him kind of like the Rams do Gurley. And you saw David Johnson go I don't forget I think 2,500 yards from scrimmage or something insane. And then Mike McCoy gets there and he goes, you know what we're going to run? We're going to run halfback dive right up the center's butt every single time for 3 yards.
Well, and here's the stupidest part of that. So the Jets play the Broncos, 240 yards rushing. The Rams play the Broncos, 230 yards rushing. The Cardinals play the Broncos and 30 yards rushing or something? I mean, it's just some ridiculously low number.
And so finally,
what is going on? He's the worst.
I don't own. We mentioned how angry, and we've heard how angry some Melvin Gordon owners are. I wish Tony was a David Johnson owner, because boy, his rant would be great.
No, that goes to a guy named Keith Smith.
Oh, poor Keith,
my boy.
Yeah,
the Mac Daddy.
So who do you got this week, Tony? For who you thought they were?
This is going to be bad because we've bashed them so much, and I was thinking about changing this, but Dallas is who we thought they were. I just can't get over this.
That's fair.
I just can't get over this.
Fair.
How can you not win this game? How can you not make a play? How can you not be that person or be that team, be that player who steps up and wins a game? They can't do it. They are who we thought they were. They can't go out there and win the game.
I will to throw on that, and it's something Jerry Jones maybe needs to take notice of. He likes to put all his former players out into the media, obviously, as you see with Jason Witten, Jason Garrett, Tony Romo and Troy Aikman. But as y'all kind of mentioned earlier, Troy Aikman didn't like the Amari Cooper trade. Witten was on Monday Night Football a couple weeks ago talking about how he would have gone for it on 4th down and you can't be so conservative. And then you have Tony Romo, who just basically out-coached Jason Garrett from the booth on Sunday. If you were watching that game, he was like calling, here's what you should do. And then Garrett did the exact opposite over and over again, just telling the fans, here's what your coach ought to do. And really, Tony Romo, it should be Lincoln Riley, but Tony Romo deserves a fair shake. He got shafted by Jason Garrett his whole career. Tony Romo should be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, because the only reason we're just now realizing that Garrett is so bad at the end of the 4th quarter is because Tony Romo masked all of his terrible head coaching mistakes by almost making by all his 4th quarter comebacks. Let's go ahead and bring him down. Head coach of the Cowboys from the booth to the sideline, baby.
Kevin, you can't be a top 5 quarterback of all time and also be a head coach in the NFL. So just remember that. You got to make a choice, buddy. Let's
bring that Hall of Fame quarterback and broadcaster and bring him down to make him a Hall of Fame head coach too.
All of Fame quarterback.
You know I have to find a way to get my Tony Romo and my love in for Romo every week. So
Ben Roethlisberger is going to be head coach of Denver Broncos when he retires too.
Oh man, that would be fantastic. Well, speaking of Tony Romo, something else that he's synonymous for.
Playoffs? What talking about? Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs? I thought we can win again.
I thought that was a perfect segue to the playoffs because Tony Romo and playoffs go so well together. So since we missed last week, we'll throw out 2 for this week, and I'm gonna go ahead and start just because I'm gonna.
Oh shit!
Oh shit!
I don't even have one.
I'm gonna be real boring, and I realize that I haven't put the Buffalo Bills in my playoffs thing. So yeah, I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills after they got shellacked by the Colts. And then I also realized that I haven't put the Raiders on my not making the playoffs. Okay. So after John Gruden, he tried to act like he wasn't punting on the year, but clearly he's punting on this year now. And I'm going to say the Raiders and Bills.
Smartly.
I think the over-under for games won by those two teams combined, I'm going to set it at 2.5. Would you go over or under? I'm just saying.
I think I go over, but damn, that's a close line.
They're probably going to play somebody who doesn't have to win in week 17. They'll get that one.
I'm really pissed off at the Bills because they robbed us at a chance for Nathan Peterman to solidify himself as the worst quarterback in NFL history by starting 50-year-old Derek Anderson. He hadn't even thought about playing football for the past 4 years. And then the Bills are like,
2 years.
Would you like to start a game?
For 2 years.
Would you like to start?
Yeah.
We could have had Nathan Peterman been the first player ever. Yeah, I'm telling you.
The Bills put out on Craigslist wanted starting NFL quarterback. You must have previous experience. And please contact.
They tried to get Matt Leinart, but Matt Leinart's like, no, I'm cool with my broadcasting career. So they were like, Derek Anderson, how about you? Would you like to start? And Anderson's like, yeah, I'll come make $1 million just to come get hit a few times.
And yet, no Colin Kaepernick.
Don't even get us started. I agree with you.
Well,
I was hoping for laughs there, boys. I wasn't trying to make a social statement.
You missed it. As soon as Derek Anderson started, the Kaepernick Twitter came out hardcore, and then Bortles had his game. I mean, it was a good weekend for the Kaepernick Twitter stance. Them and the analytical Twitter, they were all out there.
Yeah.
So,
that's where Jacksonville's going next.
Is that so? Playoffs? Is that what I heard, Tony? You're saying Jacksonville's not making the playoffs, or?
Oh yeah. So I knew you said that Jacksonville will show up again, and you're right. Jacksonville is my pick for not making the playoffs for the first pick.
I can see that more likely than buying Bortles stock.
So I can appreciate that, and I'm sure that
I'm not buying Bortles stock. Wait a second. Can we hold for a second? I'm not buying Bortles stock. I'm buying Jacksonville stock.
And so here's the thing. Okay. So what you said, LJ, though, is interesting. You guys were talking about all the turmoil that's in the locker room. And the one thing that Doug Marrone did do last year for Jacksonville is he brought them together because it had been somewhat of a hard sell for that franchise for several years. They can't pack the stadium. They can't get any support. They rallied last year. Tough team. Tough defense. Bortles was just serviceable, and they had a hard runner. Fournette probably is not going to be back this year. If he is, it's going to be week 10, week 12. This is a lingering injury. They go and get Carlos Hyde. Something is afoot at the Circle K, as Ted would say. And so Jacksonville's in a lot of trouble, not just because they're 3-4, because it is a crappy division and anybody could win it. But they don't have the chemistry that they had last year to get done in that. And that's a shame because, I do like the franchise. But so them, and then I'm going to have to go with the Nanner Niners. They're just done.
That's fair.
And they can't keep a freaking running back healthy. If I was Matt Breida, I don't know. I would just kind of trot out and then trot back and say, well, I know I'm going to get hurt at some point in time today. So y'all don't put me out here. Just go ahead and put me under the tent. He goes out and plays. He's a tough kid. Jeez, man. He gets hurt every fifth play.
I was going to ask that about Breida. Is Breida I've never seen a guy look like he has a career-ending injury more often, but come back every single week than Matt. Every single week, it looks like Breida tore his ACL, and then he's back next week.
Our favorite quarterback.
Yeah, man, he beat me to it. I was gonna say other than Ben Roethlisberger. Yeah.
So you mentioned Jaguars, and you mentioned
kid.
how they're in a world of trouble. And
I got a statement on that too.
My statement, I'm circling back around to Mr. Blake Bortles. And so this offseason, they decided to give him they could have just left it one more year on his rookie deal, the fifth-year option, that first-round pick skid. He would have got like $19 million this year, and they could have delayed the decision on whether they want to pay him or not one more year. But instead, they give him a 3-year, $54 million contract with 26.5 guaranteed. I wanted to throw out some of the guys. By the way, Blake Bortles, since he came into the league, leads the NFL in interceptions thrown. And instead of Blake Bortles and giving him that big contract, they could have maybe, instead of, I've been on the whole don't draft running backs high. I don't think it's smart. They could have drafted Mahomes instead of Fournette 2 years ago, or Deshaun Watson instead of Fournette 2 years ago. And I don't even want to imagine. I know Andy Reid makes Mahomes what he is in a large part, but still.
Well, and the talent around him.
To see either one of, if Deshaun Watson's doing with Bill O'Brien, if you put him with that defense in Jacksonville, all of a sudden I don't know. And then they could have traded for Teddy Bridgewater, which the Saints traded a third-round pick for, and they're not paying hardly anything.
Like nothing.
Or even they could have got Tony's boy, Alex Smith, who he got paid a 4-year instead of 3 years, but it was only about $5 million more per year. When it comes to quarterbacks, I know I say only $5 million, but when it comes to quarterbacks, that's not that much. Alex Smith on this roster, I mean, they might be undefeated because Alex Smith's not going to lose you the game.
Captain
and they could. I don't know why they have not called up the Browns to try to trade for Tyrod Taylor. I just don't understand. There's so many better options than Blake Bortles, but yet they screwed it up. They paid him, so now they feel like they're on the hook for this guaranteed money, so they got to play him. And that's exactly what Ramsey was talking about when he said, "We all know what it is, but we can't talk about it." But that's my little rant. LJ, what were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say that your problem with Jacksonville is that they got some turmoil in the locker room. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Or that's
my problem is Blake Bortles. My main problem is just Blake Bortles.
Well, I'm talking Tony. Tony's the one calling him out of the playoffs.
Okay. Yeah, and that's and that goes to their main asset is their defense and the chemistry of that defense. And you can say what you want to say. Great defenses have great chemistry, and they're losing that right now.
Well, I remember somebody telling me why the Steelers were going to make it to the playoffs was because the Patriots don't have to get along. I don't remember who said that though. Some really good betting guru maybe, but
that's right.
I don't know that your views on chemistry feel that consistent to me. I'm just throwing that out there.
No, you're right. But understand what I just said though. I said a great defense needs great chemistry.
Okay, so
the Patriots,
Antonio Brown can hate Roethlisberger, but if Campbell doesn't like Ramsey, we got a big problem. Right? Because they got to work together. Right.
But offensively, Tom Brady says
that's a fair distinction.
Brady says I don't give a shit, Julian, what you do after you leave here, as long as it's not something with Giselle. But just go run that 8-yard out, and I'll hit you.
I disagree with you, but that is totally fair. That is a very fair difference. I hear that. That makes sense to me.
Yeah. That's the only deal.
So, LJ, I know you weren't quite ready for this until I sprung it on you, but do you have a playoff
I'm going to take it easy. I'm going to go with the Arizona Cardinals because I haven't taken them yet.
Why not? Yeah.
And the New York Jets because I haven't taken them yet. So,
well, that's the same thing I did. I kind of like an hour before we were coming on. It's like, oh shit, I need to pick two playoff teams.
Jets. Yeah.
They ain't making the playoffs.
Y'all kind of like the Jets though in week number 2 though. The Jets were out there too. Ooh, the Jets. What about the Jets?
Well, we tried to calm down the
Darnold bandwagon.
We tried to calm down.
You guys hopped on this like every rookie or second year quarterback is a generational talent.
Well, I actually think me and Mr. Green over here tried to throw some water on the Darnold hype. Not saying that I think Darnold's still going to be a good quarterback in the NFL, but just the fact that like all of a sudden Jets fans were like playoff 10 wins. Could we get 10 wins with Darnold?
No.
It's like no. It's still the Patriots division.
No.
Yeah. That's
so.
right.
Yeah. I wanted to ask.
Easy for me. I'm not taking any chances this week. I've been doing that a lot. So
before we roll out, I wanted to bring up one last topic, and since we got our man out here, the betting man, I looked up MVP odds for this year, going from now on. And can you guess who the favorite is to win the MVP right now?
Patty Mahomes.
It is the once in a generation player, Patrick Mahomes, at plus 400. And behind him is Breeze Gurley tied at plus 600, and then and Rodgers, he's tied up there with him at 600, and then Jared Goff and Tom Brady follow And then it's a big drop off to Phillip Rivers, Cam Newton, Alvin Kamara, and Matt Ryan, which interesting that Matt Ryan jumped in there.
I hate football.
But so I looked up some stats real quick, El. And the on pace guy is gonna love these because I just kind of took where we're at right now and some guys that are on pace.
Right.
And your boy, Patty Mahomes II, is on pace right now to have 5,000 yards passing, 54 touchdowns total, with 4 of those being rushing if he continues to have 2 more rushing touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. Just to put that in perspective, El, I know he might not continue that, but just to throw that in perspective, Brady in 2007, and arguably the best statistical year ever, went 4,800 yards, 50 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. So Mahomes may end up having a better year this year than Tom Brady did in 07.
May. I will also say, let's take a look before we get too excited about how many times the Chiefs have started blank and and then ended up not making the
as soon as the
playoffs.
weather gets cold and Andy Reid's Andy Reid's mustache starts freezing up a little bit. Yeah, they could have a few bad games here.
He's got a problem when Arrowhead doesn't serve hot mac and cheese anymore because it's too cold before it gets to him. Yeah. So
that's true.
It's not going to happen.
Winter is coming, and so
Mahomes is good. But chill.
Yeah, he's good. And I will say this, though. Their defense is still really bad. They haven't done anything to improve that. So it's going to be tough for them not to score 40 points plus. Now, Kareem Hunt should coming on. Be the guy down the stretch for them. If Andy Reid is smart, he understands where that is.
Just this past week on Sunday Night Football, I don't think anyone's saying Bengals aren't getting called a Super Bowl favorite, but they're a possible playoff team and a good team, and they just beat them like a drum, 45-10.
Crushed them.
For all you betting fans out there, Al Michaels threw it out there. But did you see, Tony, the over under for that game for total points scored was a pretty much set all around at 56 or 56.5, and the game ended up being with inside the 10-yard line. At 45-10, Andy Reid on 4th down decided instead of kicking the field goal because that'd be running up the score, I guess he decided to go for it, and they didn't get it, so it ended at 45-10 because then the Bengals put the backups in. Yeah. Oh my God.
2 bad beats for you.
For the peoples with the overs, they were probably hurting.
Yeah, and I can tell you there was a lot of people because it started at 54, 55, it ended up like 58, 58 and a half. Yeah. But the other bad beat was Mr. Odell Beckham grabbing that meaningless touchdown there at the end, and then them going for 2. It's like, so that was a 5. So the Falcons were 5-point favorites, and that last thing it was a 3-point game, and so that was a really bad beat.
So on MVP odds, I think it almost always goes to quarterback, and it's probably a toss up between Mahomes, Breeze, Rodgers, and Brady. I would say, I don't know if y'all have argued with that, but kind of which one of those quarterbacks does it. But interesting, it'll be interesting to see what happens if the Rams can continue this. I know they have a couple big games going, and they'll play the Chiefs coming up in Mexico City in a few weeks. So who knows if they stay undefeated, but if they end up going undefeated, could you see a Todd Gurley or a running back win the MVP in today's NFL?
Well,
yeah, I mean, no, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I think he might deserve it, but I don't think he wins it.
And I just don't think they'll be willing to give it to Goff, even though he is going to end up with a bunch of touchdowns.
The only thing they could look for here's this is my opinion on that, is I think Mahomes is the MVP even if he doesn't keep that pace that you talked about, Kevin. If he gets to 45 to 50 because he's just that feel-good story. Chiefs are going from really nothing to being a playoff contender.
They lost their
starting quarterback. They bring in a second-year guy.
Well, they gave away their
good
starting quarterback.
But what I would say is, though,
they give away their they're 6-0 every year starting quarterback. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Anyway, let's see how they finish. But for Todd Gurley to get the MVP, they're looking for that 1,000 guy. So if he can get 1,000 plus yards rushing, 1,000 plus yards receiving, that's when I think you can talk about Todd Gurley. I don't know his statistics on the receiving side. It's pretty high. I think he's on pace for it. But if Mahomes breaks 50 plus touchdowns, there's no way Gurley gets it. If Mahomes stays under 45 or at 40 to 45, there's a possibility Gurley could take MVP if he gets the 1,000.
Well, interesting interestingly, that you brought that up, I did the on pace for Gurley too, and he's not on pace for 1,000, but he is on pace for 2,100 yards from scrimmage. So he would break the 2,000 yard, but it'd be like 1,500 yards rushing and 600 yards receiving.
I think he'd
but
have
where
to
he
have
gets
that
it,
Marshall Faulk season and do the 1,000.
it's the touchdowns though. He's on pace right now to have 30 touchdowns. And I looked at the only other running backs to win the MVP since 2001, and Sean Alexander won it in 2005. He had 2,000, just under 2,000 yards from scrimmage, which was basically all rushing. I think he had like 70 yards receiving or something.
Yeah.
And 28 touchdowns.
What, he have 22, 24 touchdowns that
He
year?
had 28 touchdowns that year, which broke the record.
28? Okay.
And then LT in 06, which was probably until we'll see what Gurley does this year. But for I know you probably aware of this, Mr. Fantasy, but probably the best fantasy year ever when he went for 2,300 total yards and 33 touchdowns, including 2 passing touchdowns. And then there was AP, who won it in 2012, which he only had 13 touchdowns, but he did it because he had 2,300 scrimmage yards, but it was basically all rushing. And he came I think
broke the rushing record.
Either broke the rushing record, came like a couple of yards shy. He was right there.
Good.
So Gurley's on pace to have one of those crazy years where 30 touchdowns may be enough to get you the MVP if they go like undefeated or 15-1. But there's also a guy in New England who gets to play the Bills 2 more times this year, and they have Josh Gordon, and they have a terrible defense. They're probably going to put up some points. Their running back just got hurt, so he's probably going to have to throw more. There's a lot to be said. I wouldn't put money on a running back to win MVP if I had to, just because it's a quarterback league.
I just wish a defender had a chance at it, because isn't Khalil Mack on pace for like a Lawrence Taylor and a quarter or something like that?
Their defense kind of fell off the path. He had the cramps or hurt, whatever happened in that game. And
well, I guess I hadn't really watched last week and the week before that much.
They kind of fell off their defense the past 2 weeks. And
fair enough.
Yeah, honestly,
fair enough. I'll take back.
I'll give LJ a little love on this. So here you go. And it is going to be very, very hard for Patrick Mahomes to stay on the pace that he's on right now. It's really going to be difficult. He probably finishes 35, 38 touchdown passes. And he's going to finally, something's going to happen. Now, if he doesn't, then he should be the MVP. But it really would be great if Todd Gurley got that. If he stays healthy and gets 30 plus touchdowns, he ought to get it. And I would be in favor of that.
And that's another big one.
Running backs.
It's very easily he could sprain an ankle or something and miss a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Much more likely for that to happen than Mahomes or another quarterback. But really,
Although Mahomes
I was looking at by looking at these odds, seeing Phil Rivers' name pop up there and the Chargers, you bought him a couple weeks ago, El, and even you bought them. I thought, man, you're having to buy a little high, but they're only going up from here. I love what they're doing. And I know Tony's are.
Well, you said that would be the name that I would put a little bit of smart money on. I mean, not a lot.
Well, we all know if you've listened to this podcast, you know, Tony, for whatever reason, hates the Bosa brothers and doesn't realize how good Joey Bosa is at the Chargers. But just speaking of Philip Rivers, and I agree, the smart money, maybe, throw it on him. And if they end up going right on a win, since like week 11 of last year, they have the best record in the NFL for what it's worth. But we mentioned Eli Manning earlier. If you go back in that draft, the Eli Manning, Philip Rivers draft, who's been the better quarterback for their career? I know Eli Manning has the 2 Super Bowls.
Certainly not Ben Roethlisberger.
It all depends
I'll take Philip Rivers though, because
I know he has a clunky throwing motion, and he's probably going to get pissed off at your Broncos at some point and be yelling at the refs for some weird reason.
And he's going to say that's heckin' crazy.
But he's pretty good.
He's good.
He's great.
He's good.
And
he's always been good.
I think you go. If you're counting Super Bowls, then Philip Rivers falls behind, and even in getting to that big game, and
Dan Marino's garbage.
That's a tough one, and that was kind of the knock on John Elway until he got his final 2. It was a knock on Dan Marino. Dan Marino's great, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, but
no question,
never could get back to get that ring, and so I think that's a tough one. I think Eli has a ring
too.
He got through on that. Ben has
2 that he stole from Brady, right?
Ben has
stole both of them from maybe the greatest quarterback of all time.
Ben has a ring or 2. But Philip Rivers is still. And here's my thing.
Shares 2 with the rest of his team.
Yeah. So here's the thing about Philip. Last thing on Philip Rivers from me. I'll shut up. He's such a crybaby. I get
the Ben Roethlisberger guy.
Rivers ripping off his helmet and going and yelling at officials. Why didn't you call this? Why did you call that? Shut up and play the game. That's the only thing I don't like about Philip Rivers. You watch his game and watch how many times he complains about a call.
In the show notes this week, I'm going to drop that Ben Roethlisberger getting tapped on the helmet by Jason Pierre-Paul.
It's all right.
And
hey, until you've been
tapped
by the nub, you don't know what it feels like.
I'm telling you, it is insane what a Super Bowl will do for you, though, because there's a guy in New England that does that same thing and has complained for passing or roughing the passer calls for the past 10 years, but he has 5 rings, so it changes.
But yeah.
He and Rodgers are the reason we can't tackle a quarterback.
I don't know if Rivers.
Phillip Rivers has like 27 kids though, so he can do whatever he wants to do.
I don't know if Rivers ends up being.
He's going to have a team of his own. He's going to have the expansion team, the San Diego Rivers.
I don't know where y'all stand on Rivers as a Hall of Fame quarterback or not. I think when it's all said and done, his stats will probably put him in close. But if he can get it, it might count on. Can he get a Super Bowl here towards the end of his career? And I think that'll put him in.
Wes, he's going to be on that threshold, I think, of the maybes. And we'll see. He's got to end it well to get there. I think.
Chargers have a 3-year window with him, and I think he'll ante up and he'll stay with him for 3 years. They've got to A, fill a home stadium. B,
they fill it with the other. They don't even have a home stadium.
They fill it with Raiders fans all the time.
That is the new stadium, and I don't know if you read that story. They can't sell their licenses. They're not. They've had like 15,000 licenses.
The NFL is questioning. All the owners got together and they're questioning on whether they should have ever moved him to LA. And that was the biggest
Chargers. Chargers may be the team in London.
No, well, that's the Jaguars. That's the Jags.
If they're going to move him to LA, might as well move him.
Yeah. So anyway, but they've got Chargers have 2 years. Yeah, Chargers have a 2-year window to get there with Rivers. And honestly, I think next year is probably their year. Melvin Gordon will be in his prime. That receiving core is in their prime. You'll have Hunter Henry back.
Joey Bosa.
If Bosa can get healthy, then
I can't wait. I'm going to clip the recording from last week.
Wait.
When he comes back, you're going to see it down the stretch of the season where Bosa and Ingram are just lighting the world on fire.
You know what?
Ends there.
Yeah, Bosa's going to be fantastic.
We've already got that clip, by the way. It's our promo for
Bosa's going to be fantastic for 3 quarters. And in the 4th quarter, when he comes out with a dislocated elbow or a fractured tibia,
he just needs to go holler at Adrian Peterson and get that extra water in his juice. Get that little powder they put in there.
Yes, because he went to Ohio freaking State where they raised nothing but losers.
The Ohio. No, I hate Ohio State. Yeah.
Jeez. Oh, excuse me. The Ohio. Yeah. For all you Ohio State listeners out there, the Ohio State. All
right, boys. Well,
send me all your mail.
All one of you that understand how to find a podcast on the internet.
I think that about wraps it up for this week. Do y'all have any other parting shots y'all want to throw out?
Yeah. I got one thing I got to talk about.
All right.
Okay. Chad Kelley. Did y'all see the news today about Chad Kelley?
I did see old Swag Kelley.
The heir apparent to the Denver Broncos fame and fortune. Okay, so here's one.
Oh God,
this is better. This is better than Baker Mayfield getting tackled on Dixon Street. So Chad Kelley, Von Miller. So here's the story. So Von Miller has.
Wait, Von's not a part of this.
It's Von Miller's party. Von Miller has a Halloween party. So Chad Kelley goes to this Halloween party, and this is the best part. Dressed up in a cowboy outfit. And so apparently Chad gets so inebriated or on something that he forgets where the hell he's at. So he walks into another person's house, sits down on their couch next to the wife who's feeding their infant.
Who's holding their infant child.
Holds their infant child and says, "What's up?" So the guy's like, you need to get
Swag Kelley.
So Kelly's sitting there, and so the guy's like, you got to get the fuck out of my house. And he goes and grabs. You can't write this.
Yes,
he goes out and grabs a vacuum tube from his vacuum cleaner and starts smacking Chad Kelley over the back. So Chad Kelley,
swear, LJ, I swear, this is all legitimate. He is not making this up.
Oh my!
So Chad
this is on the police report.
Leaves the house and goes find. I guess it was either his driver or his Uber. They find him in the back seat of an SUV down the street to a guy matching the description of the intruder, and so he gets arrested for trespassing. And so John Elway says,
and he admits to it.
Yeah, John Elway says we're very, very disappointed. Oh my God! Case Keenum just bought 3 to 4 weeks extra as the
Speaking of Tony, you brought this up.
Awesome.
This brought out.
Starting,
that's why this 3-day week has been it's been a Hall of Fame week for the Kaepernick Twitter stands, because John Elway was once quoted as saying he didn't go for Kaepernick because it'd be a distraction. Character issues and a distraction. And then Swag Kelley does this. LJ, I want to let you know though, it wasn't Von Miller's not to blame here. Von Miller holds a Halloween. I was reading up on it, and how he does a Halloween party every year as a camaraderie thing, and likes to do this for the team, and he puts it all on because he made so much money.
I think
Swag Kelley's just Swag Kelley.
You broke into Von Miller's neighbors are not like nobodies in Denver. Like that's probably a good neighborhood. I'm just saying.
To his defense, Tony, he didn't break in. The owner said they thought they had locked the doors, but the cop said there was no forcible entry. He just happened to walk through their front door and sat down.
6'4".
He pulled a Ryan Russillo
with a cowboy outfit
in their 20s.
It happens to the best of us. It happened to my boy Ryan Russillo in Wyoming one time. It happens.
Who hadn't done that, right? The only thing I'm worried about
who hadn't done that in their 20s.
The only thing I'm worried about is it's going to come out with. So what really was he dressed up as a cowboy? And it was assless chaps. That's the only thing I'm worried about.
I was really hoping there when LJ brought up who hasn't done that in their 20s, that Uncle Tony would have had an old pop story. That would have been the highlight of the night. We might not just say it on air. He's probably cringing right now and getting nervous.
I think we all know that he does have some story, but
y'all can play me out with this one. But there was this one time. No, I better.
Yeah, boy.
I was going to cut it, but I wanted to have it on recording for blackmail.
Pops was sweating bullets. It's okay, Pops. It's all right.
This one time. All
right.
You see this zit? I just popped it. Can you see that? There you go. There's your Pops quote. All
right. Well, that'll do it for this week. Somehow, I didn't think we were going to get a Swag Kelley reference, but I'm so glad that we did get to share that story with LJ.
Here's the real brains behind the outfit.
What's going on?
Hey.
How's it going?
That's got to be the brains of the operation.
Brains of the outfit right there. Brains of the outfit.
No kidding.
That's who's behind all those MyBookie locks, which, by the way, you can still. I don't know how much longer the promo code they're going to let it offer. We're in week 8, so we're about to hit halfway point of the NFL season, and it's time to start playing, stop being a rookie, and get in there and play with MyBookie and get in there with the winners.
Go get it.
Put in the promo code JPP25, and they will not only match your deposit dollar for dollar, they will also give you $25 extra in your pocket. So go ahead.
Skins on the road, baby. 25. Skins on the road. Take them deep.
There you go. All right, for this week's Pops, we missed you, but good having y'all. Good having y'all boys on, and we'll see you back here next week. Peace out.
Peace.
So anyway,
my question is, I make Kevin he puts this egg crate bed topper around him when he records so he doesn't sound bad, and yet somehow crickets are getting into my editing, and I don't know what's happening.
It was so funny because LJ wasn't with us the first couple times you were on, and so he put in the show notes. He's like, "Why are there crickets? What am I hearing?" And me and Dad both see that you're out on the back porch, but LJ just had no clue.
That's why I was doing this to drive you crazy. By the way,
well, you do a great job at that. You need to keep that up.
You do it.
Yeah, I wish I could. I hear you guys so well on Skype.